Hi, welcome to our third week, and we're going to focus on our spine and our core this week. I'm going to do the class that we did in person, but in person we used a squashy ball for a lot of the class. So in place of that, I'm going to use a rolled up towel just to help open up through the thoracic area in places and add a bit of support. If you have a little Pilates ball at home, then feel free to use it. Otherwise, the towel will do just fine, and we'll just adapt slightly from what we did in person. So we're going to come to our Pilates setup. We've got our feet hip width. Our knees are just soft. Pelvis drawing up to neutral, squeezing in those transverse abdominals. Draw those shoulder blades back and down and really lift through the crown of the head. And just start to draw your attention to your breathing. So starting to take those nice wide breaths into the rib cage. Using your exhale to really squeeze those muscles back together. Squeeze the ribs and draw down into the abdominals. If it helps, you can take your hands just to your lower ribs, letting the fingertips touch. And as you inhale, try and draw those fingers apart with the width of the ribs. And then as you exhale, draw them back together again. Just watch you don't take this action up into the shoulders. So keep those shoulders down and really enjoy those nice, long, slow breaths. Keeping on drawing up through the crown of the head. Keep that posture nice and tall. Little engagement of that pelvic floor as well, just to help stabilize through the spine. And with your next exhale, we're just going to turn to look over our left shoulder. And then inhale to the front, exhale over to the side. Inhale to the front, just take that ear to shoulder now, taking a stretch through the side of the neck. Drawing right the way up as you come to center. And over to the other side. We're going to get our circulation going straight away today. So we're going to go into our standing 100. We want those hands floating forwards just above the hips. Slight bend through the elbows so we can really squeeze under those armpits as we pulse our arms. And we want absolute stability through the upper body. So draw that pelvis down into neutral. Really lengthen up through the crown of the head. And we're going to begin to pulse those arms, keeping stability through the torso, through the rest of the body, as we take nice long inhales and exhales. And we want to be aiming for around about 5 breaths here. So really pulse those arms, drawing those shoulders down. Be careful not to let those shoulders rise up towards the ears with the effort of this. Keep drawing them down, squeezing under the armpits. Squeeze that core. Pressing the arms, but keeping stability through the body. And when you've done your 5 breaths, just let the arms be still. Take a nice big inhale up. Keep those shoulders down as the arms come up and begin to take your roll down. We want that tummy button towards the back of the t-shirt. Tuck the tailbone under and begin to dive down one vertebra at a time. Try and really find that lift of the ribs here that we practiced against the chair in previous weeks. Finding that lift of the ribs and that scoop of the tummy muscles to come all the way down as far as feels comfortable. Take a bend through the knees if you need to. And then use an exhale to begin to roll back up. So again, scoop that tummy button towards the back of the t-shirt, rolling up, taking it from the core. Really pulling up with those tummy muscles. Coming all the way up and coming up ready for our second set of our 100. So we're going to take another set doing exactly the same. If you feel like your balance will allow, then you can just float up onto your toes, lifting the heels for the second set just to add a little bit of a balance challenge as well. So get that nice tall posture. Tuck that tailbone slightly under if you need to, but just find that neutral pelvis, floating up onto the toes, bringing those hands forwards and beginning to pulse. Again, remembering that those shoulders want to keep drawing down. Find a fixed point to look at to help with your balance. Take those nice wide breaths into the rib cage. Again, aiming for 5 breaths if you can. Pressing through those big toes just like we learned in week 1, using those toes to support our balance. Final breath. Let the arms be still. Press the heels down with control. Take those arms up towards the sky. Take that nice big inhale, and again we're exhaling to roll down. Scoop that tummy button towards the back of the t-shirt. Tuck the tailbone under and dive down 1 vertebra at a time. Coming down with control. Seeing if you can go a little bit lower this time. Making sure if you're tight through the hamstrings, you've taken that bend of the knees. Taking an inhale into those top ribs to deepen the stretch. Push those ribs high as you exhale and scoop back up. Coming all the way up to standing, shoulders back and down. And we're going to take our feet out just further than hip width, with our toes at a 5-to-1 position, so slightly turned out. We're going to go down, bending our knees, but rather than our squat where we normally take our bottom backwards, weight backwards, we want to try and keep that nice straight back as we bend the knees and squeeze up and down. So really focus on lengthening through the body here. We're going to take those hands in front of us, elbows wide, and we're going to use our inhale just to take those shoulders down, elbows wide, and our exhale just to press those hands lightly together as we start to bend down into those knees. And pressing those hands together is going to give you a little extra abdominal connection. Inhaling up, squeezing through the glutes, lengthening through the crown of the head. If you need to adjust those feet a little wider to come deeper, then do. So exhaling down, pressing those hands together. Elongate that exhale. Inhale to come up, squeezing up through the glutes, up through the crown of the head. Press those hands as we come down. Find stability through the back and the core. Use those breaths. The longer the breath is, the more time your body has to find where its limits are. So elongate that exhale to come down as far as you feel able to. Inhale to come up with the same sort of control, really pulling that head up towards the ceiling and finding the length. We're going to do one more, plying down, finding as much bend through those knees and hips as you can. Bring those arms up, circle them round towards your hips. We're going to dip down again, but not quite so far. So take that nice tall spine. Knees are coming down over our second toe. Find that stability through the core, and then we're going to lift one heel. Inhale to place it down. Exhale to lift the other. Inhale down, and keep that body weight as central as you can. Try not to move from side to side. Just go nice and slowly, pressing through the toes. Find that flexibility through the ankle and the foot. And try and keep the upper body as still as you can. Finding that stability through the torso. For 4, 3, 2, 1. Squeezing all the way up. Taking an inhale here and an exhale just to bring those arms up and over and scoop down into a roll down. You can keep those feet wide if you like. And then just taking an inhale at the bottom. You might be able to get a little bit deeper now that those feet are wide. And then scooping back up again with your exhale. We're going to take those arms up, take them behind our head, opening through the chest. So we want those elbows nice and wide. We want stability through the core. Don't let the elbows make your ribs flare up. Nice and straight through the spine. Taking a nice big inhale here. We're going to exhale and send that elbow up towards the ceiling, finding a lateral flex through the spine. And then inhale to come up nice and tall. Exhaling over. Again, find that flexion in the opposite direction. Inhaling up. We're going to do one more each side. Really work into that waist. The slower we go, the more we have to draw on those muscles to pull us back up to center again. Try not to go too fast and use momentum. Really focus on the waist muscles. Drawing up nice and tall, taking those arms out to a cactus shape now. And with an exhale, we're going to twist. So keep those hips facing me, facing the front of the room, and twisting over towards the left. Inhaling to the front and exhaling to twist over towards the right. Keeping that nice 90-degree angle at shoulders and elbows. Unless there's a reason you need those arms a little bit lower. Going from side to side, keep squeezing the core. Keep lengthening the spine. And really work into that waist as we do one more each side. Last one, squeeze into that waist, squeeze the head a little bit higher, bring those arms down, and we're just going to heel toe those feet back into that parallel position. Take the arms up, and with an exhale, we're rolling down again. So finding that roundness through the spine. Lift those ribs high, and we're coming down in that round back position. But this time, once we're down here, we're going to take an inhale to come up to a flat back position. We're hinged 90 degrees at the hips. There's length from our crown of our head to our tailbone. And then with an exhale here, we're going to press our hips forwards, press our arms backwards, and come up with our back in one straight line. We're going to go through that again. So we're going through the round back to come down towards the floor. Taking that tailbone under and really finding articulation through every vertebra. As we get down to the bottom, we're going to inhale to come up to flat back. Let those arms hang straight down. And exhale, hips forwards, arms back, coming up in one straight line and really drawing from that powerhouse, from your core muscles. We're going one more time. Inhaling up, rolling down with that exhale. Through that round back position. Finding that difference this week between our round back and our straight back. Inhaling to find length from crown of the head to tailbone. Exhale. Use those tummy muscles to push the hips forwards. Bring those arms back and find that nice long tall posture again. Fantastic. We're going to come down to the mat now. So we're going to take our inhale and our exhale to roll down. But we're going to start with our swimming exercise. So I'm going to move my mat slightly so there's a slightly better view. And you can just watch this first one before you come down to the mat. So we're going to come down with our arms long and our legs long. We're going to take our tummy button away from the floor, strength through the core, and we're going to exhale to lift an arm and a leg, opposite arm to opposite leg. Inhale to bring it down. Exhale to the other side. As we progress, we can lift the upper body too, as long as the arm is still the highest part. Try not to lead with your neck. So arm goes first, then upper body lifts. And if you want to extend even further, we lift the whole upper body off, and then we find that extra lift from the hands and the legs. So we're going to do that all together. Taking our inhale up, our exhale to roll down. Coming down as far as feels comfortable, taking your inhale. Exhale, bend those knees, walk those hands forwards, and coming all the way down to front lying. Now try here just to follow my instructions rather than watch the video, otherwise you're going to end up with a crick in your neck. So take that forehead to the floor, squeeze the tummy button away from the floor. Take an inhale, and with an exhale, you're going to lift right hand, left leg. Taking that arm as high as you can go without tilting the body. Inhale down. Exhale to the other side, finding length from fingertip to toe. And keep going there. From side to side, trying not to rock through the pelvis. Trying to keep control of that core. And if you want to, you can take a bit more of a lift of the upper body, as long as the neck and head don't lead the movement. Keep leading with that arm and shoulder. Really working into those upper back extensors. And if you want to, you can take that lift of the upper body and then take that full swimming exercise. For 3, 2, 1, lower, and then just push yourself back into a child's pose. Round that back over, taking the arms down by your hips. And just relax the back over, opening out. Taking those muscles in the opposite direction. If a child's pose doesn't suit you for any reason, sometimes people don't like squashing into that chest and tummy area, you can always take that stretch in a cat pose instead. So come into 4-point kneeling and push those ribs up towards the ceiling. Taking the tailbone under, letting the head drop. Just take a moment, whichever stretch you're working through. Just enjoy taking the spine in the other direction. And then we're going to come all the way back to front lying again, ready for our single leg kick. We're going to go through a cobra position to open out through that thoracic spine and then lead into our single leg kick. So coming all the way down, we want our hands just next to our heads. Elbows are tight into the body. Again, find that core control, tummy button towards the back of the t-shirt. Take an inhale, and with an exhale, press into those forearms. Try to keep the shoulders relaxed and down. Don't let them come up to the ears. Press into those forearms and lift that sternum. Finding extension through the top of the spine. Inhale to come down. Exhale to lift again. Keep that tummy button squeezed so that you don't end up really arching into that lower back. Keep some control of that mid-spine. Inhaling down, exhaling up. And if you want to deepen this stretch, if it feels right for you, you can push up onto those forearms and then continue pressing to take those arms into full extension. Again, really important you have that tummy muscle control. Don't arch totally down into the floor. Keep those hips in control and just enjoy opening up. You can take an extra lift of the sternum if it feels right for you. Lift that gaze, really extend through the upper back. And then coming back to forearms if you aren't already. And if you would rather do your single leg kick lying, then you're very welcome to take it all the way down to forehead on hands and scoop that tummy button from the mat. Or we're up on the forearms again with that tummy muscle control. Taking an inhale with an exhale, we're just pulsing and extending. And pulsing the foot in towards the bottom and extending. Working from side to side. If you're up on those forearms, as the body tires, you might find yourself sinking into the shoulders. Keep pushing that floor away. Pulsing in, control of that spine. Extend that leg with control. For 3, 2, 1. And then take the whole body back into that child's pose or cat stretch again, just to take the spine back into that rounded position. Take a few breaths here, remembering that lateral thoracic breathing into the rib cage. Using it in this instance to deepen the stretch. And find that muscle recovery. Find that peace of mind with your practice. And then we're going to come up to our 4-point kneeling position. Ready for our knee hovers. And if you feel able to progress into our leg pull prone, which is like a plank position. So we're all going to start in our 4-point kneeling. We want our shoulders directly over our wrists. Make sure those shoulders aren't hunched up. Really push the floor away, but try not to hunch through the upper back. Nice and flat through the back as if you're a table. Tuck those toes under. Imagine you've got a tray of drinks balancing on your back. Take an inhale, and with an exhale, you're just going to hover those knees just a centimetre above the floor. And then holding this position, take some breaths. So we want between 3 and 5 breaths as we hold this position. Absolute stability through the back. Squeeze that core. Push the floor away. Don't take it into the shoulders. And then when you've done those 3 to 5 breaths and you feel like you've done enough, take those knees down, back to the floor with control. And just push back onto those heels and have a little roll out through those wrists. We're going to go through to another set. And if you feel able this time, if you can keep your bottom in exactly the same position and your back in the same position while stepping out into a plank, then feel free to take that full plank, that full leg pull prone position. So coming up to 4-point kneeling, getting yourself set up, take a little spin of that elbow crease towards the front of the room, just to make sure the shoulders are rotated back into the right position. Tuck the toes under, use an exhale just to hover those knees, and we're either holding here, or if we can step back without the bottom lifting, without the back tilting, we can come into a full plank. Finding length from the crown of the head to the tailbone. And then even pressing into those heels slightly to find length from the crown of the head to the heels. Feeling like someone's stretching you from one end of the room to the other. whichever position you're in. Come down whenever you need to. Slowly releasing yourself from that hold. And then turning over to your side, ready for our side bend. So we're going to come down onto forearms for this one. We're going to keep the bottom leg bent and top leg extended. During our side bend, we want to take our spine into that lateral flexion. So really finding a lift through the ribs to take the spine in a sideways direction. So we're going to really aim to pull our ribs away from the mat and make that space between the mat and our ribs as big as possible. So either take that top leg long or bring it in with the other one, whichever feels right for you. We're going to inhale to prepare, exhale to take that arm all the way up and over, trying to lift the ribs without lifting the shoulder. And inhale to come down. Exhale up and over. Really trying to find length through the spine again. Finding that fold sideways. Pushing the floor away with the forearm. Just making sure that that shoulder is directly over the elbow. So that if you feel like you've got enough of a lift through those ribs, lift, 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 lift. You can extend that action even further and come up to a hover of the hips. And then take the hips down and fold back up. So working into side bend, whichever level suits you. Keep the hips down if it doesn't feel right for you. If you're really taking it into the shoulder, it may well be that you need to just work on lifting those ribs a little bit higher for a little bit longer and really strengthen those oblique muscles. So really lift those ribs and coming back down. Trying to make sure that the hips remain facing the side, the front of the room. Aiming for one more. Pushing yourself up. And just have a little fold in the opposite direction. Those side muscles on the side that was closest to the mat were pulling away, working really, really hard. Just take a stretch out. And then come to face the front of the room with your feet hip width, knees hip width. And we're going to just take a little tilt from the hips to take that body backwards slightly. I'll show you facing this way. So we're sitting tall on the sit bones and we're going to take a tilt backwards. And we're going to take our arms out, taking a fingertip touch just behind us, but not sinking down into the hands and letting the shoulders lift. Just a fingertip touch for balance. So we found our position, and it might be that this is enough for you. This is a lot on the abdominals, and it's quite a lot on the hip flexors already. If you want to progress, take an inhale, and with an exhale, lift one leg. Try and keep the same angle behind the knee. Inhale to place it down. Exhale to lift. The more you sink down into those hands and the further you go down into those hands and shoulders, the less work the abdominals have to do. So really take a lift of that sternum. Just keep those fingertips lightly grazing on the mat. And march from side to side, keeping that nice alignment from toe to knee to hip. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you might want to go straight forwards into a spine stretch, or if you can manage a little balance, then do. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then fold forwards into your spine stretch. Taking those tummy muscles, scooping up and under the ribs, pushing the crown of the head towards the opposite side of the room and folding forwards from the hips. Try not to get too much of a hunch from the shoulders here. Again, if you're tight through the hamstrings, just take a bend through the knees so you're still getting that lovely stretch through the lower spine. And then folding up to sitting. And we're going to take our side bend over in the other direction. So swing your legs around, over towards the right. We've got our left forearm down on the mat. I'll turn this way a little bit. Taking our hand down to our side. Again, that top leg can be extended if you like, or bent in, whichever feels better for you. Make sure those hips are facing the front of the room. Push away so we're not taking too much into the shoulder, and exhale to come up and over, folding into the ribs, lifting the ribs away from the floor, and inhaling it back to neutral. Exhaling up and over. Keep pushing the floor away. And again, if you feel like you've got your shoulder directly over your elbow, as if you've got strength through that arm and the ribs are strong enough to lift without sinking into the shoulder, then you can begin to lift those ribs and extend the movement up towards the hips, hovering them off the floor, bringing them back down, but keeping the ribs as high as you can for as long as you can. Really working into the obliques here. Pull those ribs away. Find that lateral flexion of the spine. If you're feeling really strong, you can take those hips up, and as you come down, you can just hover them and then come back into that full side extension. Hover those hips and extend. Work with whatever feels right for your body. Aiming for 2 more. And then coming down with control if those hips are raised, pushing yourself up and just taking that fold over in the opposite direction. Take some nice deep breaths into the rib cage again, using that breath to deepen the stretch. And then coming all the way up, and this is where we're going to want to use our towel. So in a minute we're going to roll all the way down to the mat and just have a really nice relax over the towel or over your Pilates ball if you have one. So I'm going to place the towel lengthways along the mat so that in a minute I can get my head and my shoulder blades up and over here just to extend out through my thoracic area. So I'm going to start by working into my roll down. So I've got my knees and my feet hip width. I'm sitting up really nice and tall on my sit bones. And I'm using an exhale to pull my tummy muscles back away to the back of my t-shirt and then tilt my pelvis under, finding a C shape through the whole of my spine. It might be that this is enough for you, just finding that C shape through the spine and then inhaling to sit up really nice and tall. If you're able, you can take it lower. So pull those tummy muscles away, find that roundness through the spine, tilt the pelvis and take it back towards the mat with control, using the tilt of the pelvis to control that action. Taking an inhale at the bottom and an exhale to roll back up. And an inhale to sit nice and tall, finding that L shape again. So finding that L shape and then finding that C shape. Using all those muscles through the back and the core to control the spine. Sitting up nice and tall. We're going to go 2 more, whatever level you're working at. Taking it right down towards the floor if you're able. Keeping it much higher if that feels better for you today. Just watch those knees as you come up and down. Don't let them come in and out. Maintain the hip width. And then we're going to roll down with control, using those hands if you need to. Don't just flop back. We're going to roll down with control, coming towards that towel. Just adjusting it slightly as we go. So it's under those shoulder blades. Just let the head come to one end of it. And then let the arms come wide into a T shape. And just open out the chest, letting the shoulder blades hug that rolled up towel. Just releasing out in that upper spine where lots of us are really tight from hunching over phones or sitting at computers. It's really lovely just to let our bodies relax in the opposite direction. As you do so, try and maintain a little bit of core control here. Try not to arch into the back. Keep this controlled and open up through the chest. Keep those knees and feet hip width. Taking the stretch into the right place. It might be that for some of us, it's really comfortable just to let that head hang. So stay where you are if you're comfortable. But for some of us, you might want to just take that head up and over. And still let the shoulder blades just hug that towel. But let yourself just relax back. With this stretch, if you find that to get your head to the floor, your chin has to lift all the way up and back, then it's probably not for you. Keep your head resting on that towel. But if you can maintain some length through that upper spine, through the neck, and still open out through the chest, then it can be really nice to give yourself that extra space to stretch. And then when you're ready, you're going to take those arms directly above you with an inhale. With an exhale, you're going to push those ribs into that towel, finding a scoop under the ribs, and just coming up into a C shape with the upper body lifted. This might be enough for you. So if so, just take that head back gently towards the floor with control, or back towards the towel, and open those arms out again. If you want to take it further, you can take the arms up, use your exhale to curl up, find that C shape through the upper body, really scoop here, lift the sternum towards the knees, using that powerhouse to round you forwards, up and over your knees, into a full roll up. Here you can either extend the legs or keep them bent, and then rolling back down, and then opening out. So do whatever feels right for you. We can either work through those small roll-ups, just finding that crunch, and then relax back down. Or you can use your breath to roll up, continue to reach. Try not to reach with the arms, that causes a shoulder shrug. Try and reach the sternum towards your knees, finding that lift from the core. And again, folding forwards. And wherever you are, we're going to do one more. Working with control. Finding the stretch through the right part of the spine and chest and across the front of the shoulders. And then finding the scoop from the tummy muscles, not from the neck. Keep pushing the sternum up and then rolling forwards. And whichever version you chose, we're just going to shuffle our body or move this towel out of the way. And then come back down towards the floor, ready for our shoulder bridge. So we're going to come down with control if you're seated. If you're already lying and you've just managed to shuffle that towel out the way, then that's fine. Coming down with control, finding your neutral spine. Finding those long arms, pulling the shoulders away from the ears. Take those heels really close in towards your bottom so you can almost reach them. Making sure your knees remain hip width and you're pressing through your big toes. Take an exhale to tilt the pelvis. Push the pubic bone towards the ceiling. Finding a curve through the lumbar spine, through the very lower spine. And then come back to neutral. So a lot like our pelvic tilts that we often start the lesson with. Just finding that tilt of the pelvis. Tuck the tailbone under. Push the pubic bone up. And then you can just continue that movement if it feels right for you. Pushing up, rolling up through the spine, taking the hips nice and high, but stabilizing through the ribs. So when we've got those hips nice and high, we don't want to see those ribs lift. We want those ribs nice and stable. The lift is coming from the hips. Squeeze into the glutes and then rolling down with that same control. Aiming to lift one vertebra off the mat at a time. Send those hips nice and high. And then aiming to get one vertebra at a time back towards the mat. So imagine someone's hand is just under your ribs here and you're finding that push back into the mat. Finding that connection with the ribs, but keeping the hips as high as you can for as long as you can, and then coming back. Finding that scoop under the ribs again, that upper abdominal connection that's quite hard for lots of us to get. Finding that scoop, pushing those ribs back towards the mat, and then returning to the mat one vertebra at a time. Keep working through this. If you feel like you want to extend it, then we can roll up. Keep those hips nice and high. Keep those shoulders away from the ears. Keeping stability through the hips. We're pressing through the toes and the ankles again to lift one heel and then the other. Trying to keep everything nice and steady from the knees up. Just pressing through the toes. Trying to imagine you've got a spirit level across those hips. Keeping everything nice and stable. And if you want to progress it even further, you can take one leg up, dip it down, up, down, up, and then bend it back to the floor, maintaining stability through those hips. Maintaining stability through the ribs. And then bringing that leg back as well. And then rolling down one vertebra at a time. Drawing those knees in towards the chest. Having a little roll from side to side. Giving yourself a little massage through the back. And then we're going to just finish with some scissors and rolling like a ball. So we're going to take our feet down towards the mat. For scissors, we're going to inhale and exhale to bring one leg up to tabletop. We want 90 degrees at the hips, 90 degrees at the knee. And keeping 90 degrees at the knee, we're going to dip that toe down towards the floor. Don't quite let it hit. And then draw it back in with the same control. Trying to keep stability through the other side of the body. Don't let the other knee wobble from side to side. And then you can swap to the other side, lifting the left leg up to tabletop. And then dipping that toe down towards the floor. Don't quite let it hit. And then draw it back in, making sure you're working from the hip joint. The knee joint remains static during this exercise. And if you feel like you've got enough core control, you can take both legs up to a tabletop position. If you're happy working one leg at a time, then continue doing 2 to 3 on one leg and then the same number the other leg and keep alternating. Otherwise, we're taking both legs up to tabletop. Squeeze that core, make sure the ribs aren't flaring. And then we're taking one toe down towards the floor with control and bringing it back in with control. Lowering with control and returning with control. Now it's tempting to do this fast, but then we've not got the control of the abdominals. We're not feeling where our limits are. Take it down slowly and bring it back slowly. With Pilates, often the way to intensify an exercise is to really slow it down. Make those muscles work. Feel which muscles you're engaging. Try not to use momentum to make the action easier. And if you want to make it even more challenging, you can take that scoop of the upper body and that lift of head and shoulders. Using your exhale to control that toe going down towards the floor. Being careful not to speed up as the body tires. I think I probably am doing. And then draw those knees back in. Have another little rock from side to side. And then we're going to come up to sitting. Now, for some of us, we'll just want to push ourselves up to sitting or maybe even come through a roll up. If you're happy rolling like a ball, then you can take hold of the front of your shins. Pull your upper body up, nose towards knees, finding roundness through the spine, and then find a roll up to sitting and even come to a balance if it feels right for you. If you're not happy rolling like a ball, then you can still go through the preparation phase of that. So take those knees up towards the chest. Take an inhale to lift the chest, opening out through the upper body. Lifting the sternum, length through the spine. Exhale, take those tummy muscles back away. Find some roundness through the spine here. Bringing the head towards the knees, but also finding a little ball-shaped gap between the knees and the chest. Inhale, sitting tall. Exhale, pull those tummy muscles away from the thighs. Find roundness through the spine. If you feel like you've got that roundness and you're really happy to try and control a ball roll down to the floor, then you can come up onto your toes, inhaling nice and tall. Exhale, take those feet off the floor and come into a balance. Inhale, nice and tall again. Exhale, find that roundness through the spine and tilt the pelvis. And as you tilt the pelvis, you'll roll back and roll up. We want to try and maintain the same distance between our knees and our chest and between the backs of our legs and our calves and the backs of our legs. So the same angles at the knee and the same distance between the thighs and the chest. So we're using just the tilt of the pelvis and the core muscles to control that roll rather than the momentum of our legs. It's much harder to do than you think it's going to be. So really take that balance. Inhale, nice and tall. Exhale, take those tummy muscles back. Find roundness through the spine and begin to tilt the pelvis. And as long as you're doing that with control, then you really can't hurt yourself. But if you're coming just flat back, then you're really going to damage your spine or cause some problems or bang your head. So make sure we've got that roundness through the back, that pelvic tilt to control the action, coming slowly to the floor and slowly back up. And then coming up to balance again if you want to. You can always take those arms wide, legs wide. And then cross those legs or bring those feet together and just open out through those hips, because when we work the abdominals really hard, often the hip flexors feel it too. So just take those hips nice and wide. Sit up nice and tall. And with any of these exercises, just keep it at the level that you feel comfortable with. If you're not happy rolling like a ball, just don't do it. If you're not feeling secure and confident with it, or you're worried about it in any way, just keep it with the preparatory stages. Take those knees nice and wide, sit nice and tall. Just open up through the hips. Take some nice deep breaths. And then we're just going to close our legs, close our knees. Take hold of opposite knees, crossing those arms over. Find roundness through the spine as you take your head down, tummy muscles back, and then take a small opening of the knees just to stretch out through the upper back and shoulders. And then close that off, slowly come out of it. Bring those arms behind you and either link your hands together and open out through the upper chest, or place your hands into your lower back and just squeeze your elbows together, getting a really nice lift through the chest. Try not to take too much into that midsection. Try not to arch that back too much. And just take some nice deep breaths. And then come to sit however's comfortable for you. Just take a little rock from side to side, a little stretch out from side to side. You might want to have your legs straight forwards. They might be forwards and bent. You might be comfortable in a cross-legged position. Just take a few sways from side to side, stretching out. And then finally take a nice big inhale up. Exhale, press those palms back down, press those shoulders down. Inhale up. And exhale, pressing down. Fantastic. Well done, everybody. Obviously, in the videos, I don't teach as many modifications as I do in class. So if there's anything that's not right for you and you can't remember what versions you did in class, then feel free to just drop me an email or a message and I can remind you of what level you were doing and any modifications you were using. And I hopefully will see you next week for our arms and shoulders series. Well done. Bye.